It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutch. I'm your host, Mainz, and a colleague in a danger zone in Rainford. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Not particularly dangerous, but certainly if I went outside, I would get wet, as it is absolutely sheeting down all of a sudden. Might
It's
not be by the time
raining
you're listening to this.
It's raining sideways.
Now, I have something to discuss with you,
Okay.
slightly off topic. It's still football, it's just another type of football, the one that I used to give a shit about.
Okay, yeah. That's the Ramble game?
The Rambo game, yeah, the one where they actually use their feet, but I digress. Tony Robbins, who is a Liverpool fan, he is a comedian. He was on the Quickly Kevin Will He Score podcast this week, where he talked about, and he named his worst Liverpool team from the 90s.
Yeah.
And I just want to run run the team by you and get some thoughts straight away. I'm going to say there's one name on it that does not appear on here that I am absolutely staggered about, having seen him play.
Okay.
There's another couple who I think probably should have been in on reflection, but
I haven't listened to this podcast, so I'm eagerly anticipating what you're going to tell me.
You never watched this, and as I say, I used to watch Liverpool, and laugh at them. So
the 90s was the time to do so.
So we start with the criteria that Mr. Robbins put out was they had to have played. They can't just have been people they signed and then never played.
Yeah,
but
of course,
they look awful in the res.
Was there a minimum requirement? If they played once, or did they count?
I think it had to be more than once.
Okay.
Which I think is technically just as well, because one of them only squeaks in because of that. So I'll in goal, not a lot of choices for Liverpool goalkeepers, because you tend to have very long-serving ones. So he went with David James.
Because he's shit. I'm just going to cut you off straight away. This is number one with a bullet. A lot of people might have gone Mike Hooper here. Understand it. No. David James cost Liverpool minimum one title. I would put forward an incredible case for two. I can categorically state that if Liverpool would have had Peter Schmeichel in the 90s rather than David James, even with all the Spice Boys nonsense, one league title would have been won. I think two. He's also scared of needles, and I know that for a fact.
Okay, right back, Torben Picnic.
Okay, tough to argue.
Left back, Julian Dix.
That is, he's the first one on everyone's list. And no offense to West Ham fans, we'll offend you in other ways, just not on this one, because I know he's a legend and also excellent in golf. Absolutely terrible footballer for the Reds.
Centre-back pairing of Bjorn Tor Kavama.
The thing is about Kavama is he was amazing for 5 games, then got destroyed by Danny Cadamati in a derby, and then was never the same again.
No. And his partner at centre-half is Nicky Tanner.
Yeah, Nicky's... Yeah, okay. Okay, there's... To think that we had a back three of Ruddock, Scales and Bab for 15 years in the 90s. I know there's only 10 of them, but it felt like 15. And none of those three are in is interesting. Also, that he hasn't gone 3-5-2 in this concept, as that's what Liverpool played for the majority of the 90s, is also interesting. Yeah.
So straight away, we say Bab is the key. Because Bab was one of that classic, it happened an awful lot, not just for Liverpool in the 90s, was good at a tournament. Then got signed.
We paid 3.6 million for Bab in around the same time that the Blackburn paid 3.2 for Shearer. The defence rests, Your Honour.
Okay, now we move into midfield. Nigel Clough.
Terrible. Scored 2 goals when I was the mascot in the 3-all, but absolutely awful.
Istvan Kozma.
Terrible. Souness.
Yeah. The pride of Dunfermline, I believe he was referred to as. Jean-Michel Ferry.
Oh, he didn't play, and that's 99. He's like a Ule sign. I'm not having him. You can't have him, can you?
That's what I would put Paul Stewart.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I think we paid 2.3 million for him under Souness. Terrible footballer.
Yeah. And then he went with Jimmy Carter on the other side of midfield,
who weirdly played for Liverpool and Arsenal, and I think won titles with both.
Okay, up front, Sean Dundee.
No. Yeah, okay.
And this was it's not the 90s, but he was allowed a technical to get him in. El Hadj Diouf.
Yeah, it's definitely not the 90s as we signed him in like 2002. But in the Phil Bab, he was good in the tournament, wasn't he? It's like we were sad to see the loss of Papa Bouba Diop, the wardrobe, great nickname, this week. And it brought us back to that goal that he scored in the 2002 World Cup against France in the first game. And reminded us of dancing in Headingley, like the idiots that Ian Botham called us on the telly. But yeah, El Hadji Diouf, also a dickhead. Not just shit. Like, I don't mind being shit, but he's also a horrible human. He seems to want to regularly pick fights with Jamie Carragher and Steven Gerrard. Yeah.
So obviously Diouf has the armband in this team, and the manager was Graham Souness.
Yeah.
But as I say, there's no.
If I could do something to save someone, I would remove the years 1991 to 1994 from Graham Souness's life, because he then wouldn't have to have major heart operation. He wouldn't do something absolutely ridiculously stupid and offensive and talk to a newspaper that he shouldn't talk to, and he would never have managed the Reds.
Yeah. So I say the only things that I can, the only major omissions I've got is there's no Phil Babb.
Babb's got to be in for me.
There's no Mark Walters.
Mark Everton Walters. And I say, if we're not having, El Hadji Diouf up front, I'm not sure who we would, because, Liverpool did at least have some good strikers in the 90s. We were all right up front. Yeah.
So it's,
you put forward the case that Riedler wasn't great, but he wouldn't get in your way. Do you know what I mean? But I don't think he gets in your worst team.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be, hypercritical, you could say for what they paid for him, Stan Collymore deserves to be honest. But he wasn't terrible, was he?
He was a fantastic left winger in 95, 96, though. I could tell you how that team played. It was Barnes to Redknapp to Barnes to Redknapp to Barnes to Redknapp to Barnes to Redknapp. Tackled by McManaman. Oh, McManaman's ran into a random corner. Tackled by Collymore. Crossing. Fowler. 1-0. Well, it was probably 2. It depends who we were playing. 1-0 against a good team. Or, they're back in the game at 2-1 against, I don't know, QPR.
If Steve McManaman was excellent at anything, it was falling over. And I don't mean diving, I mean just literally falling over.
My uncle assumed that he permanently had his hand up in an apology.
Sorry,
he's a season ticket holder. Let's not hope that our friend Ian's mum, Anne, doesn't hear this, who absolutely adores Steve McManaman, as my uncle, who's sadly no longer with us, absolutely thought he was trash. But there you go. Probably somewhere in the middle. Probably somewhere in the middle, because I'd like to stay for the record that when McManaman left, he won 2 man of the matches in European Cup finals for Real Madrid. So,
and I will just say there is absolutely zero chance of Anne Mullen listening to this. So let's move on.
That's true. Let's get into the NFL portion, Neil. This week we're going to plug into the mains. We're going to talk about me being right, one of my favourite subjects, and then we're going to continue the stay and go section, and we're going to look at quarterbacks and how you get rid of a quarterback that you don't want. Pay attention, Neil. You may need this later on. Then back into the fancy portion. We'll do fancy darling, fancy loser, and we will get involved in the DraftKings Daily Fancy Team of the Week, where I believe Neil won all of 20 cents last week. Bravo, Neil. Every bit counts.
Going, of course, we are of course going to look at running backs, whether they should stay or go, and they should all go. So that's why we'll move on to quarterbacks.
So let's get this started. Let's all be honest.
No.
When I chatted a load of wham last week about how I believed the Washington football team, no semi-professional, just Washington football team, were going to beat the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, the 4 people who listen to this show thought, get this ginger fool off the airwaves immediately. And you were probably right to think that. And I have to say, when it was 14-0, coming to the end of the first half, I thought I was pretty stupid too. But you know what? Who's laughing now? Because I was right and you were all wrong. So I will sing the I'm Right song.
Yeah, very good. As I say, the worst 11-0 team in history is now the worst 11-1 team in history, which, when you consider that the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers is Ben Roethlisberger, with his rapidly diminishing arm strength. In fact, you can't even call it arm strength. Strength of the player had something behind it. Yeah, it was coming, and you called it. Whether this means,
I think this makes Washington good, by the way. Like, you just look at teams like that are undefeated, and they weren't a juggernaut team, far from it. So therefore, I expected them to lose, and given the fact they'd all the schedule mess up and all of the lack of bye week, it was bound to happen, and I just happened to call the shot on Washington, and it worked.
3 games in 12 days, you can manage that in cricket, certainly. You can certainly probably, despite the fact how hard they work, you can probably get away with it in soccer. The NFL,
it's not gonna fly. But what it does call in, Neil, is that although Washington beat a 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team who had played their third game in 12 days, the New York Football Giants had similar no such issues beating the Seattle Seahawks, who had no excuses, well, apart from them not being very good last week. So this calls into, they're now 5-2 in their last 7, and Washington also okay, because some of their losses have been to the G-men. Is the NFC East now just like okay?
Well,
I mean, Dallas and Philadelphia are tire fires of gargantuan performances, but are there two like meh teams to bring it out from the worst division in the history of Christendom?
Well, I said, a long time ago that I expected the competency of this division to be shone through with Washington and the Giants. As we all know, I have such high opinions of both those franchises.
And as we said at the start of the year, we believed that Joe Judge and the attitude that he was giving towards his players would absolutely pay off with a 5-2 record in the last 7.
Yeah, they're winning games, so I will doff my cap to them. I still, I worry, that playing let's say Washington win, New York win the division, and then they have a first place schedule next year.
Yeah, that's not going to be good. That's going to be.
Are they not straight back to this predicament? I can't say that they're not, but I'm not saying it's not. I think New York's win, I keep saying I keep getting mixed up, don't know why. I think their win says more about the Seahawks maybe than it does about the Giants. It's interesting that they won with Colt McCoy in a way that I do not expect they would even try to win if they had Daniel Jones. They wouldn't say, we're probably just going to have to grind this. They'd be more inclined to put it in the quarterback's hands. I don't know. I mean, people are still saying that the Minnesota Vikings, not dead yet. Yeah, the Lions aren't dead yet, mathematically either. Do you want to kiss them in? A winner of this division is still going to be probably the worst hosting playoff team of all time. I just don't know what, because of the state of the division and the state of the teams. These are 4 teams that all in their own ways, you're all looking at saying, yeah, you've still got problems. You can't say that winning the division would be a massive feather in the cap moving forward. It would be great, obviously, for Washington, considering their head coach in his first year has overcome cancer, that their quarterback has overcome 17 life-threatening operations to not only succeed in the NFL, but also to, host a playoff game that they would lose to a far superior opponent. I just think this division is not going to get out of its own way because it is still blinkered as to how good it is, even though, you're saying, yeah, they're 2 competent teams that are both in the playoff hunt. Seriously? Are they? I mean, yeah, technically they are, but are they, though?
Well, they are, but yeah.
Can't college teams decline invitation to bowl games?
Yeah, but right now,
I'm just thinking that maybe the Giants should decline.
I see what you're saying, right? But right now, one of these 2 teams is going to play Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think that's the.
It's going really right today, 10th of December, 9:20. It's going really well in Tampa, right?
Faustino, Antonio Brown, Priya.
That's what I'm saying, right? It's not going very well. So, the scary thing is that both teams don't play each other. And if both teams continue to win, they could get to 9-7. And are you telling me that the you can guarantee that the Vikings or the Cardinals are going to get to 9-7?
No.
There's an absolute insane scenario where two NFC teams could get in. It won't happen because Washington are getting beat by the 49ers this week. That's a fact. Like, Kyle Shanahan ain't getting beat by no Washington team. No. He's gonna pull every trick out the book to beat us by 40 points.
Yeah, 20 targets for Jordan Reed as well while we're on the revenge tour.
Exactly. We're on a full revenge tour, so yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to gloat, so that was enough. But let's move on now and talk about QBs stay and go. So like last week when we had the wide receivers, we got quarterbacks who are unrestricted free agents this year, Neil. And we wanted to talk about a number and see what we believe they will do, or what they should do, or what we think they'll do. There's a large number of some of which we're not going to talk about, so unfortunately we won't be talking about Robert Griffin III or Colt McCoy or other former Washington quarterbacks who happened to be 3-1 last week, weirdly. The one who lost was Robert Griffin III. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year, but there you go. First one, Neil, is the obvious one. A man who was littered in debate on best quarterback in the NFC East, got injured, and now comfortably won that debate. It's Dak Prescott. What happens with Dak? Well,
the expensive thing to do is to tag him again. That doesn't seem to make an awful lot of sense. The Cowboys have 23 million, it's nearly 24 million in effective cap space. Now, I'll phrase this carefully. These salary cap numbers are again courtesy of our friends at overthecap.com. Effective cap space is the maximum amount they will have available when they have signed at least 51 players to their active roster, because in the pre-season, before the regular season starts, the salary cap, it's the top 51 players. So a lot of these teams, you look at and think, the Titans are a prime example of this. It's like, oh, they've got nearly 30 million in cap space. Yeah, it's because they've only got 30 players under contract for 2021. So yeah, it's great. So they've got nearly 24 million in cap space. So they can't afford to franchise tag Dak Prescott as we stand. They would have to make a change. And obviously they're going to make cuts because, everyone's going to shed their middle class in terms of the roster, as they always do. I've said, I will continue to say this, that Dak Prescott should in no way offer a hometown discount or have a 1 year prove yourself after your injury. Absolutely not. Whether they've come out and said, I think it was today, that, oh no, the Carson Wentz contract situation, that's not put us off extending Dak Prescott. Then why haven't you? You've got no. It's absolute bollocks. Yeah, it's very well good coming out and saying on the 10th of December, no. Just because another quarterback with a big extension stunk, that's not why we haven't extended our quarterback. Well, you're gonna have to give a pretty good reason, because I don't know what it is.
Don't worry. You haven't given him any leverage whatsoever by being absolutely terrible while he's been out. So
you pay the running back.
But yeah. Who is at best the second best running back on your roster, at best. The issue for Dallas, based on what we know about Jera, is what they should do right now is not win any more games. Now, they could do that by being not very good, so that's fine. And that puts them in the position to actually draft a quarterback. Because I think right now they are 2-9, 3-9.
3-9, yeah.
Then be 3-13, mate. And be the 6th pick. Be ahead of Chicago. Be ahead of Detroit. Do you know what I mean? Be ahead of teams who want a quarterback. Be ahead of Washington. Do you know what I mean? Just do what you need to do. I had a really cool one. I was watching NFL Live on ESPN because I live in America, so I obviously get that. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Officer.
Dan Orlovsky's put forward an interesting one on Dak. Jacksonville Jaguars, Dan Mullen as his head coach. who is the former Mississippi State coach, who's now the coach at Florida, who's done an excellent job this year. Lots of people get thrown lots of money. I don't see it happening, by the way. I just thought it was interesting. Like, you don't usually hear random things like that. I think the Colts are going to be heavily involved in this type of stuff when it comes to these teams. We'll get onto the Colts momentarily, I guess. The issue is for Dak is the people who didn't believe in him, and what I mean by that is didn't pay him, are going to be in charge ad infinitum. They're not going to fire a GM. They're not going to fire, they might fire a head coach, but who cares? Head coach doesn't matter in Dallas. So, do you take the tag? Well, it's $34 million. So, it's tough to turn down. Don't get me wrong. And they've got the ability to tag him, and there's nothing he can do about it. So, we'll see. I don't know. If I was him, and I know me and you are probably biased on, we got an NFC East bias on this, and I'm sure if people listened, in America or whatever, they think we're insane. I wouldn't touch Dallas with a barge pole. There's only about 5 franchises that I think are worse to be on than the Dallas Cowboys, because the expectations are huge, based on nothing. Based
on what they did 30 years ago.
Exactly. It doesn't. They've been as good in the NFL as Washington have since the 1990s, but somehow, everyone thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl every year.
Shall I do the stat that I put in my Ravens wire piece?
Please.
The Dallas Cowboys have never won a Super Bowl as long as the Baltimore Ravens have been in existence.
Defense rests your honour. Let's move over to the Colts, Neil, who have 2 quarterbacks who are going to be unrestricted free agents, Jacoby Brissett and Phil Rivers. Based on how both are playing and the fact that one of them is 40, I assume both are gone, and the Colts are back in the quarterback sweepstakes.
Yeah, the only logical one you could say is that maybe they think we can get away another year with Phil Rivers if Jonathan Taylor takes the step up, if the pieces around him, the pass catchers like Michael Pittman step up. If they, take another leap forward in their second year, they're not going to pay Jacoby Brissett again because he's going to be 29, and he was on an average of $28 million for the 2 years he had. And plus, and this is relevant, he was the starter that you benched for someone else you brought in. Very hard to go back to that player, he says, with a pang of pain in his heart. Yeah. Now, the player that I am, of course, alluding to, everyone seems to think that he had did his best work in Philadelphia with Frank Reich. The problem that I have with that, obviously the Colts have a boatload of cap space. They're nearly $60 million in effective cap space. This smacks of what would inspire the Colts to look at what Carson Wentz is doing at the moment and be so confident that they can turn him around, that they're going to part with a premium asset. They're going to want to get him cheap, and because they can absorb the salary. But you're telling me Carson Wentz is worth giving up a first, second, third round pick? The Eagles are probably going to have to throw in a pick to get rid of him. And the Eagles roster is so bad that they can't afford to be throwing picks away like that.
This is you ring Detroit up straight away and you say 2 2s or here's a 1 and we'll take Matthew Stafford and you can rebuild again.
Because it's as you say, the best hope is trading for a veteran or re-signing Phil Rivers, because as we can see on this list, the free agent market is not that attractive for a team like the Colts, who I think they probably think they are just on the outside. I mean, they are not closing the gap on the Kansas City Chiefs if they sign Geno Smith.
No, that's what I'm saying, right? Like if I'm the Colts under Reich or I'm the 49ers under Shanahan, I'm calling Detroit. Like, what else am I doing? I suppose if I'm the 49ers, I think about calling the Jets. I'm not sure Wright does that personally. Might do. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we've discussed our love of Phil Rivers on this pod before, but that was 2 years ago, unfortunately. Like, I think they're 8-3, I think.
9-3.
And I think he's holding them back. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we'll get on to it. I was on the Bet Bites pod and I picked the Colts this week against the Raiders. And, like, the only reason they won't win is if Phil Rivers does Phil Rivers things right. Because I think they're just more talented. I think they're better coached. And I liked what John Gruden's done this year. Don't get me wrong. It's not an anti-John Gruden approach. But yeah, I don't know. Like, speaking of teams, so I listened to the
they're 8-4. Sorry, the Colts.
I listened to the Athletic Football Show a lot, and Robert Mays is the host of that now, who's brilliant, and he's obviously a massive Bears fan, and he continually at the moment is having an internal debate in his head about which team's in a worse position, the Philadelphia Eagles or the Chicago Bears. He obviously falls on the side of the Bears. I assume there's absolutely no way Mitchell Trubisky is a Chicago Bear this time next year.
No chance at all. He is done as a starter for me in the NFL because he's shown nothing. And, you can blame Matt Nagy, and I think we both do to an extent. But he doesn't look good and can't throw the ball to his left. So
that's an issue, right? Just for those who aren't paying attention, that's an issue.
Yeah, there is always going to be a left side to the field. It doesn't matter how small you make it. Yeah, I mean, he's 27. And he is the poster child. Him and people like Mark Sanchez are still going to be that. If they started for 1 year in college, do not draft them high, because they've not grown out any of these pains. They will grow out of them while you're expecting them to be good.
Yeah.
So no, he's a backup at a team that their starter is of a similar skill set. I mean, at least he is mobile. He's not a statue. But it's got to be a team that has... I mean, I don't think he's going to go to... I'm not saying he's going to go to Baltimore, but a team that has a mobile quarterback so their offense is built around him. If they lost him, he could plug Trubisky in and hope he didn't sabotage them if he had to play 2 games. But for another team, I don't think Shanahan's going to be calling on Mitchell.
No. See, the issue for the Bears is they've got no cap space. I think they're 10 million over right now. And if you sign Mitchell Trubisky, you're almost suggesting that because you drafted him and you're giving him a new contract, that is your franchise. So you're going to have to pay him loads of money. And A, he's not good enough. And B, you haven't got any money. So it's kind of I look at the Bears and you think they're in a bad position because they've got no money and they got no quarterback. And in my opinion, at minimum, they need to fire the GM. But I assume they fire both. Because if you need a new quarterback, what has that brain trust ever given you confidence in that they understand what quarterback is about? Because let me tell everybody for the millionth time, these people pick Mitchell Trubisky when later on in the draft, the Houston Texans took Deshaun Watson and the Kansas City Chiefs took Patrick Mahomes. Like, after the first year, they all should have been fired. So the fact they've lasted this long is pretty incredible. But yeah, Trubisky will be somewhere, but I don't think he's a starter. He's like a backup at Jacksonville. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how I see him anyway.
Is Jim Harbaugh going to be in the Bears, or has he lost it?
Well, I don't think he's lost it. I think I was listening to something about this, and you know what you're going to get from Jim Harbaugh, right? You're gonna get 3 good years. 4th year will be a bit wild, and the 5th year will just be insane. So you just got to accept it. Based on what you hear from people in Chicago, the best person to go for would probably be Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern. They're playing Ohio State in the Big Ten title game because I think they actually played 6 games, unlike Ohio State. But whether he wants to leave Northwestern to get fired as the Bears coach after 3 years, I don't know. He is from Chicago though, so another reason to have him. 2 more to look at, Neil. First, Cam Newton, who has got his team to 6-6.
Yeah, he
his
has.
team. Like, he looks so injured. Like, he looks broken, and not like this isn't like, oh, he's not fit. He just looks like in physical pain every time he throws a football. I don't know if that's the case, but like, his team won last week and he threw for 75 yards.
Second game in a row under 100. This is not 1920s. We're not playing on muddy high school fields. These are pristine, well-kept environments. Especially, it was in LA, wasn't it? It was in their brand spanking new state-of-the-art stadium.
SoFi, wasn't it?
Yeah. By the way, that was one of the greatest mismatches in coaching I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But I digress. If it's the same shoulder, and it must be because it's the one he's throwing with, this is the third time. So you start to look and think, and he's still scoring rushing touchdowns. Yeah, but you don't want him to, because that means he's going to be running and opening himself up for more punishment. I fear for him, and I do not believe he is in the Patriots' long-term plans.
Do you know what's weird, though? I think he plays for a team that plays in LA again this week and wins again this week.
Really?
+5 as well. Absolutely.
Mr. A. Donald is probably like a word, but...
Mr. A. Donald might want a word, but correct me if I'm wrong, Bill Belichick's defence is playing Jared Goff. Let me see how that's gone in the past. Oh, look, massacre. So, yeah, I'm okay, thanks. I just need to get 14 points. They're all right, you're doing that. To be honest, against, as you said, in the coaching mismatch, which was basically Bill Belichick against the ham sandwich last Sunday, he won 45-0 and his quarterback couldn't throw.
Stop. He's already dead.
Yeah. Final one, Neil. Jameis Winston. Who came in on $1 million, which is cool, right? To back up Drew Brees, which was cool. And then Drew Brees broke every rib in his body. And Jameis Winston hasn't thrown it.
Now, Jason at Over the Cap, on the Over the Cap podcast, did have an interesting theory. They are paying Taysom Hill a ludicrous amount of money anyway. They paid him that before this season. So before they even thought Taysom Hill was going to play. Jameis Winston, as you say, is on a 1-year contract earning $1.1 million. By not playing Jameis Winston, they are leaving open the possibility that Jameis will be available again in free agency for buttons. Instead of giving him 3-4 games in relief of Drew Brees, looking competent, and then going out expecting to earn $20 million a year. So by basically saying we can win without him, but maybe we should probably have a real quarterback around in case Taysom goes tits up next year. I think they've done this to try. I'm not saying, actually I am saying it's a cold and calculated way of lowballing him, because the elephant in the room for the New Orleans Saints, as much as everyone's getting on about the Philadelphia Eagles cap situation, the Saints are minus $98.3 million in effective cap space next year. And that is because Drew Brees, he of diminishing arm speed, has a cap number.
And no ribs in his whole body.
No ribs. He's broke every single bone, and he gave him fresh new bones, and he broke them as well. That's how bad the injury was. His cap number next year is $36.15 million. If they cut him pre-June the 1st, or he retires under his current terms, the dead money would be $22.65 million, and they would save 13.5. That's going to obviously cripple anything they want to do. They have to work out something to do with Drew Brees, but it's a factor if they're going to say we'll hitch our wagon to Taysom Hill. Jameis, for the price he's at, probably a good idea.
$98 million over the cap. Looks like my credit card bill. How did I even spend this much money? I don't remember buying this.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. I bought that because it helped me win the Super. Oh, no, it didn't. it helped me choke in the playoffs.
This is awkward.
It did help the Eagles win the Super Bowl, remember?
It did. Yours did help. As I raised to John, and he said, would you do it all again? Of course you effing would. Of course you effing would. And he's absolutely right.
Yeah. As much as it hurts at the moment, we did want Philly.
We did. Let's move on, Neil. Let's get into fantasy and let's find out who you are loving this week as your fancy darling.
Hello, darling.
This week, I'm loving Dalton Schultz. The Dallas Cowboys are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. It's the Dalton revenge game. There'll be some serious revenge this week. Dalton to Dalton worked the other week. I think it's the first time in NFL history a quarterback has thrown a touchdown to a receiver who has the same first name as his surname. So there's that. The Bengals have not been good against tight ends all year. And I just think that Dalton Schultz is the one that it suits what Andy Dalton wants to do. As we said, he likes to keep it a bit close to the line of scrimmage. They can't cover him. They've got slow linebackers. You know, I don't think this is going to be a wipeout because the Cowboys don't look like they can wipe anyone out. So I think it'll be kept interesting enough that Dalton will be forced to throw. And he likes throwing to Dalton Schultz. So if you need a tight end this week, he's not the worst option. I think he's still available in about 50% of ESPN leagues. So, yeah.
On that, Neil, like, not that we should gloat about being good at fantasy, because that usually never happens, but should be both 5 minutes before the start of the games tonight, remove every single one of our players out of our lineup, so we draw 0-0 and take a tie to finish first and second in our league.
That would be shithousery of epic proportion. It would be similar to friend Connor Porter, who twice this season has had Leonard Fournette playing in Monday night, and he has been ahead by a couple of points, so he has benched Leonard Fournette just so he doesn't accidentally fumble it and lose points.
Love all that. Those last three receptions by Michael Gallup got me to 10-3 in our league of record. I'd also like to take this moment to congratulate myself for making the playoffs in the UK FL this year for the first time. So bring on your scores. I would really like it if my team started getting as many points as at the start of the season, but there we go, we'll see. On that note, let's see what bad people I should be avoiding this week as Neil gives us his fancy loser.
If you have to start Miles Sanders this week, you're screwed. I'm terribly sorry. It's just the way it is. He has been terrible. The Eagles have been terrible, this I know. But Miles Sanders has not helped. He's an absolute zero in the passing game at the moment. He's not doing anything to protect his quarterback. And plus, it may have been mentioned, the Eagles have named Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback. Now, Jalen Hurts is a very, very mobile quarterback. And we know what that means. As the great Dick Vermeil said, the thing about running quarterbacks is they run. They don't check it down to the running backs. The Saints defense is downright nasty. It doesn't like to be run on. So if you're going to have a quarterback who's not going to look to target a running back, who's not getting it done on the ground, I really don't see... You're banking on Miles Sanders breaking off one huge run, which he has done a couple of times this season, because he's not been getting the volume and he's not been particularly efficient when he's got it. So I'm terribly sorry, but if you've got Sanders this week, best of British to you, you're screwed.
Some teams can be rubbish and their players are fantasy relevant. I don't see that for many players on the Philadelphia Eagles, with the possible exception of Dallas Goedert. That would be the... But even that, I'm not 100%... Even that is... I haven't really got any tight ends, and tight end is a wasteland of wastelands, so therefore I'm playing him.
You're praying basically that Dallas Goedert gets 10 receptions and catches 8 of them, because the Saints have been good against tight ends as well. Should point out, though, that last week, 18 tight ends scored more than 10 fantasy points. That is the most for a given game week this season. Granted, one of them scored 40 points, but that's because the New York Jets do not like tackling tight ends.
Can you believe we got 40 minutes into a show and not brought up that play?
The thing is, I will say this about that play, and thanks to JT O'Sullivan at the QB School on YouTube, it's a terrible play call. It really is. The technique by Lamar Jackson, though, don't turn to the outside. Turn inside, because if he catches it, you can tackle him inbounds. They don't have, but no, by turning your hips to the sideline, he's done you, mate. It doesn't even need to be a great throw. It just needs to be a bog standard NFL throw. But if you make that call, you deserve to not have a job. Greg Williams, I honestly still don't know why he's been getting employed, because he was. Hey, let's cut to the chase. He's a reprehensible scumbag.
Well, yeah, I was going to say let's start at the top.
And ever since Bountygate, his teams have been awful.
Yeah, this isn't the Greg Williams who was at Washington when he had Sean Taylor in a number 2 defense, in back-to-back years or whatever.
Yeah,
they're not very good at their job. I don't know. I think it's probably the first bit of good fortune the New York Football Jets have had in about 10 years. And I just hope for their sake and their fans' sake that they make the most of it. Because, such things as this franchise is such a mess at the moment that their nomination for the Walter Payton Man of the Year is now not on the roster as they cut him a month ago. That's not funny. It is funny.
It is funny, you're wrong.
It is funny, but, the Walter Payton Man of the Year is not a funny award. That's a really good award. Honor. But their team is so screwed that their best person doesn't play for the Jets anymore. That's the jetsiest thing in Jetsville.
Yeah.
On that note, I assume you haven't got Jets in your team. I actually have.
I have.
And let's get on to Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Mainz and Duts. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. Quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a defence and special teams. Neil, who's your quarterback?
My quarterback, hopefully bouncing back after 2 rough games, including one absolute pantsing last week, is Mr. Justin Herbert. He is playing the Atlanta Falcons, who do not have an NFL caliber defense. Herbert is very, very good. He used 6,800, and I shall go with him.
I'm absolutely fascinated by this game. The Falcons against the Chargers this year.
Oh.
How does one of these teams lose this game? Does as one's running to score the touchdown, does Bane blow up the stadium and he's just about to get to the line, it just explodes? I don't know. Something insane will happen. Scott Hansen is going to guide me through it at around 9:10 as the world
Tuesday
goes to shit in that game. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
It will be a phrase they used to call it on NFL Fantasy when they had the Fantasy Stronghold. They used to call these games a beautifully bad shootout.
Exactly right. This game's 35-34 or something like that. Just getting total insanity.
But how does one team win? This is what I can't.
No. One team doesn't win. It just doesn't lose. So one team will definitely lose, and the other team didn't lose, and by definition gets a W. They didn't win. They just didn't lose as bad as the other team. My quarterback is Nick Mullins, Washington football team against the San Francisco 49ers. There's only one concern on this.
He's not very good.
Okay, there's 2 concerns on this. 1, he's not very good. 2 is, air yards is -4, which means he's still involved in the defensive line. But if he gets past the defensive line, it's okay. It's that's the weird thing, is if you watch the first half of that game against Washington, you're like, this secondary's terrible. It's really bad. And every week, someone puts that stat up, and it'll be up again this week. Washington against the pass second. And I'm like, how does that stat come about? Because all of those corners and safeties are garbage, and every time I watch them, they get beat by someone really easily, and I don't understand how they're the second best pass defence. So I've gone for Nick Mullins, because I expect Kyle Shanahan to scheme her up so these cornerbacks are like spun in a circle multiple times.
Nick Mullins as well always has a look in his face like he's just drunk something that was really, really bitter. He's just got a face of...
They've got no players. Kyle Shanahan's an amazing coach. He was at Washington and we screwed him over. Screw you, Dan Snyder. Screw you. Running back 1, Neil.
It's a road game. It's against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, it is, Neil. Yes, it is.
It's December. I think this is Derrick Henry season.
Yeah. Yes, I also have Derrick Henry. I have him in a playoff matchup as well. So, yes, please. As you said, road game, December, at Jacksonville.
Who he likes playing.
I like those odds. 8,700. Running back 2, Neil.
Running back 2, I've gone with the unusual step of stacking my running back with my quarterback. I've gone with Austin Eckler. Obviously, Chargers, say, against the Falcons. We've seen that Herbert is more than happy targeting Austin Eckler almost as much as he targets Keenan Allen. And as I say, we think this game will be high scoring, and it's one of those, we just need as many parts in it as possible. So, yeah, Austin Eckler, 7,000.
Glad they eased him back in after coming back from his injury anyway. My running back 2 is Wayne Gallman Jr., Cardinals at Giants. 120 yards last week. And Colt McCoy possibly is still his quarterback. Colt McCoy winning quarterback last week. Colt McCoy. Yeah. So I'm going for the Giants, and these two teams are going in opposite directions. And I mentioned I was on a bet bite, and we'll come on to it, but I picked the Giants. I expect Goldman to get a lot of play again this week, even if Jones is fit, given the fact it's hamstring and they won't want to stress him too much.
Goldman did have six touchdowns in his previous 5 games, so obviously it's understandable why in their game against the Seahawks they fed it to Alfred Morris in 2020.
But Alfred Morris has always been a great goal line back, as I should know, as he was great for us 25 years ago. Wide receiver 1, Neil.
Wide receiver 1, it came off last week, and boy did it come off. Corey Davis, I'm going back to the Corey Davis, is now actually out targeting AJ Brown. Probably does help the fact that AJ Brown seems to be perpetually injured this season. So yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is not great, but, and this is obviously nowhere near as well as you called it your prediction last week. I did say the Jaguars are not letting anyone blow them out.
Yeah, it's true.
Despite the lack of talent, despite the lack of NFL caliber defenders, they are keeping teams close. So I expect that Corey Davis, he might well be the wide receiver 1. We still don't know Jonnu Smith's status. So if no AJ Brown, no Jonnu Smith, the other tight ends come in, but Corey Davis is the one who's actually shown the production this year. So 5,700, I will take him.
My wide receiver 1 is Keenan Allen. At Atlanta at the Chargers, as Neil quite rightly pointed out, the Falcons are not good on defense, and Keenan Allen is a wide receiver 1. I expect Justin Herbert to be better than last week, because just so you know, Raheem Morris isn't Bill Belichick, so he should be alright. 7,700. So yeah, there we go. Wide receiver 2, Neil.
Wide receiver 2 is someone who I would hope is going to send the NFL officers footage from any Rocky film you'd like to see and say, no, that's a punch. You threw me out for a slap. It's Tyler Boyd. Now, he actually returned his fantasy value last week on one ridiculous broken play before he got slappy with Xavier Howard. Dallas' defense, as we've known, is a Greek tragedy. And as I say, I like a bit of this. I think Tyler Boyd has shown that he's not QB proof, but he's a safety valve at whichever clown they have at quarterback. So, yeah, 4,900. If I wanted the Henry Eckler and my other running back, I had to skimp at wide receiver, so I went with Tyler Boyd.
My wide receiver 2 is Jamison Crowder. Jets at Seahawks. Seahawks are terrible in the secondary, and Denzel Mims is out, it seems, this week. So Crowder will get even more play for 5,400, considering he's had a decent enough year anyway, and I expect more targets with Mims out. I think it's good value of 5,400.
Don't dream it's over with Crowder House.
Boo. Always take that weather with you, Neil. Wide receiver 3.
Same idea, different player. I'll go with Brashard Perryman. He's not going to get the volume I suspect Jamison Crowder will get, but Crowder hasn't been much of a touchdown threat, whereas Perryman is going to go further down the field. He's going to get the air yards, so he has the potential to get the splash play. He's questionable himself, but I suspect he will be trotted out there because Adam Gase doesn't care about the health of his players, and it's just the fact that Denzel Mims isn't available. They're obviously going to be very short of bodies back there. So 3,900, Brashard Perryman. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Perryman as well if Joe Flacco actually played.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, but you're right. My wide receiver 3 is Brandon Ayuk. Still weirdly only 5,400. Last 6 games, either a touchdown or 100 yards. Really talented. And fits perfectly into the Shanahan system. It's almost like they drafted players to fit into a scheme. It's weird that some other team should try it once in a while. And for 5,400, I think it's fantastic value. And he's playing Washington, who can't tackle. See Deontay Johnson's touchdown for details.
It's with Brandon Ayuk. As he's playing very well. It always reminds me a journalist many moons ago. He met Jeffrey Boycott. And he said, do you know Mr. Boycott? Obviously showed a bit of respect. You're my favourite player when I was growing up. And Sir Geoffrey, as he later became, said, well, do you know why I was your favourite player? No, because I was very, very good. And that's it with Brandon Ayuk. Do you know why everyone should be picking him in any format, in any system you've got? Because he's very, very good.
Awesome. Tight end, Neil.
Dalton Schultz, 3,500, for all reasons previously mentioned.
I've gone for Robert Tonyan. Tonyan.
Yeah. Rhymes with Funyan.
I picked him last week in our League of Record because he was available. Don't know why. I assume some fool dropped him, and I won my team. So there we go. 4,200. He's playing the Detroit Lions, who got their new coach bounce victory last week. I don't expect it to continue this week. And Tunyan's one of the few people who Aaron Rodgers actually likes.
Did you see the look on the face of Aaron Rodgers when MVS did his weekly "I've just dropped a 60-yard touchdown pass" against the Eagles? It was a look on the face of, no, I said Pepsi was not all right. That's how angry he looked.
I can't wait for some of them tales to come out when he's retired of how much he flipping hates all his wide receivers apart from 2 of them.
And how much they hate him.
Exactly right.
That 30 for 30, they'll have to do 2. The one of him slagging off his teammates and the one that'll be feature length of his teammates slagging him off.
Not exactly the perfect teammate, is he? But probably on course right now in the narrative world to win the MVP. He's took over in the narrative sweepstakes in the MVP conversation. Yeah.
Friend of the pod, Matt Kelly, always says he doesn't hate players, he hates ADPs. He makes an exception for one player. That is Aaron Rodgers.
Flex, Neil.
Flex is David Montgomery, who is not an NFL caliber workhorse, but he's playing one on TV.
He is playing one on TV. That's brilliant.
Yeah, he does have the volume. They've got no one else at running back. So he got fed last week, he got fed the week before. They are playing one of the worst run defences in the NFL, in the Houston Texans. So 6,500, you're playing a flex, someone who could easily be one of the top 5 running backs in fantasy football this week. So not terrible. It's not as bad as some of the picks I had last week where it was, just click, swallow, be sick, forget it, move on. I'm not proud of this, but I'll go with it.
I'm not proud of this. My flex is T.Y. Hilton. Could be coming back from the dead. Not like, coming back from the dead for 15 catches, 200 yards and 3 scores. Like he's a flex and 5,100 for goodness sake. But yeah, I've gone with TY, 5,100. Playing the LA Raiders, who are weird. LV Raiders, not LA. LV Raiders, who are weird. I expect the Colts to win this. Actually quite comfortably, weirdly. But yeah, so I expect TY to get a bit of play in the score. So 5,100. Why the heck not? Defense and special teams, Neil.
Seahawks. They're playing the Jets. The Seahawks defense is not very good.
Yeah,
the Jets are not very good. So Sam Darnold was solid against the Raiders, another team for whom defense is somewhat of a mythical property. But I don't expect him to be able to put in consistently good games back to back. So the Seahawks, I think, will be maybe opportunistic. I say the defense has been better in recent weeks, but well, as we know, we've mentioned it a few times. There are a few revenge games this week, so we'll go with the Jamal Adams revenge game here, shall we?
Why not?
They're 3,000.
My defense and special teams is the New York Football Giants, who play in the Arizona Cardinals. Callum Murray's injured and is probably going to have they'll call it minor shoulder surgery in the off-season, I assume. Giants are playing really well on defence, and I expect that to continue. So 2,600, why not? Let's recap, Neil. Who's your quarterback?
Quarterback is Justin Herbert.
I've got Nick Mullins. Running back 1.
King Derrick Henry.
Sames. Running back 2.
Austin Eckler.
I have Wayne Gallman Jr. Wide receiver 1.
Corey Davis.
I have Keenan Allen. Wide receiver 2.
Tyler Boyd.
Jamison Crowder. Wide receiver 3.
Rashad Perryman.
Got Brandon Ayuk. Tight end.
It's time to be nice. Dalton Schultz.
I've got Robert Tonyan. Flex.
David Montgomery.
Got TY. Hilton and defense and special teams.
The Seattle Seahawks.
I've got the New York Football Giants. Neil, that's the end of the show. So where can people catch you this week?
People can follow me on Twitter at N13, the usual stuff across the usual sites, stuff for Ravenswire, for Rotoviz, for Numberfire. I think we should say a big congratulations to our friend Dave Downey, who has got himself a job, full-time job, I believe, as a producer with the BBC, so hats off to him.
Bravo, Dave.
I'll do my start-sit on Sunday again. Had some misses, shall we say, this week. Did advise someone to go with Eckler over Alvin Kamara. But if Alvin Kamara doesn't score a touchdown, it's not a terrible pick. But I did tell him to go with Trubisky over Matt Stafford.
Orcs. I'm at Mainz7 and can buy me at Waxing_Lyrical. If you want to hear my voice again, venture over to the Bet Bites podcast, where I give you 90 seconds of betting advice on the NFL. 3 games this week. 1 happening momentarily where I'll pick the Patriots to actually beat the Rams. And then Sunday slate, I've got the Giants plus 2.5 at home to the Cardinals, and the Colts -3 at the Raiders. Go for it. Enjoy it. Also, you get to listen to Naz Premji. It's a great name and a great guy. And a few others. This week they did Strictly Come Dancing. They did some horse racing, Scottish footy, EFL, and the Premier League. So, there we go.
Wide range.
Excellent. And on that note, these top guys are out. Screw you, Phil Babb.